Hi, I'm Lindsay, host of the Live Like Eden podcast. What do you do when your whole life flips upside down? Are you questioning everything, lost in chaos, or yearning for life's deeper meaning? I've been there, deep in the thick of it, unraveling my own awakening mess for over 20 years. Now I'm here to help you through yours. I share no-nonsense weekly wake-ups, cutting through the ego's illusions to wake you up to your own spiritual wisdom. No mountaintop bliss needed here, just practical tools, insights, and real-life experience to save you time. Plus, a much-needed laugh when we're all losing it. Let's dive into this fresh new episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another show. I'm so excited to share Iena Spiritwalker with you today. She is a blazing light of energy and so fun to talk to. She's an internationally renowned psychic healer and transformational life coach with over 27 years of experience working with other people. Currently, she helps spiritual entrepreneurs heal what's blocking them, what's holding them back, so that they can create their next level high ticket offer and step into their own multi-six-figure business. But today is a real treat because we sit down candidly, get our feet on the ground, and get into some real talk about what it's like to go through darkness. I will link everything that Iena has to offer, her website, her podcast, her 3-part series called Sacred Success Activation that she's offering for free. Please check it out. She's really a ball of light and so fun to talk to. We're going to be turning this into a 2-part series, transitioning from the dark night into becoming the light that you seek. And in part 2, we will offer some tools and techniques and insights on how you can use these in your practical daily life. So I hope you enjoy our chat today. It's fun, it's lively, and stay tuned for part 2 next week.
Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome, welcome. Well, you are in for a treat because the amazing Lindsay and myself are here to co-host a 2-part series called The Dark Night of the Soul, Becoming the Light That You Seek. Woo! Lindsay, I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Well, I'm excited to be here with you, Iena. I can already sense the vibe is going to be quite fun, and hopefully everybody else will think so too.
Yes, one of my favorite sayings, buckle up, sprinkle tits, everything's about to change.
I like it.
Get your notebook out, babe. This is going to be some good shit. So, Lindsay, let's talk about like who we are and what we do, what podcasts we run and all that stuff, just so people know why the hell they should listen to us, and then we'll break it down.
Well, my name's Lindsay. I host the weekly Live Like Eden podcast. It's a show basically about spiritual awakening and all the other things that go along with that in our daily life. I'm a realist, so I like to talk about sort of the raw things that happen when you start to wake up. And it's basically based on my own journey, of where my life started and where it is now. That's kind of how I got into it. It's a personal experience. So I love to share insights, have people on. And I also work one-on-one with people that are going through the difficulties that a lot of people don't like to talk about. There's a lot of fluff and bliss and, oh, just get to the next mountaintop and everything's going to be fine. And really when the undoing process begins and your identity starts unraveling, it can really be a horrendous experience, and not to scare anybody, but that's the truth. And so I like to help people that are going through the difficult physical and mental symptoms that do occur during that whole process. So that's where I'm coming from. Now, how about you? Tell us about what you're doing there. What's your plan?
Beautiful. I'm so excited. I'm already taking notes. So if you see me looking down, I'm old school. I'm writing shit down because there's already stuff I want to talk about. Toxic positivity. Put a little footnote in that. We're going to talk about that. Okay. So, hey, my name's Iena Spiritwalker. I'm an internationally known healer, psychic, and transformational life coach. I've been in this space for 27 years. And generally, I help female spiritual entrepreneurs, although the men are finding me. Hello, boys. Heal what is holding them back and really step into that multi-six-figure income that they deserve, because we are not here to manifest breadcrumbs. We're here to channel, we're here to lead, and we're here to get paid damn well for it. And of course, for that, we got to heal our shit. We can't be like, oh, everything's lovely. I'm okay. How am I going to pay my rent this week? No, you
Yeah.
have to be financially supported and have finances and prices that are equal to the magic that you offer people. That's when things get really fun and juicy. So that's who I am. Oh, and I host a podcast, Tits Up and Wings Out. It's on
Love it.
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all the things. And we talk about tits up is leading with the heart, wings out is embodying your divine essence. And it's all in reference to having a better life, having better health, and having better finances.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
So that's why we're here today, you guys. Welcome. And by the way, all the info to reach both of us are going to be in the show notes below.
Well,
All
it's
right,
funny you
Lindsay.
mentioned finances because a lot of people, and especially in the spiritual realm, you know, you can't make money if you have a spiritual insight or something. Like somehow that's off limits. But I mean, the bottom line is that's how we live here in the world, people. Money, if you don't have it, you can't live well, you know? That's just the
Yeah, that's a big deal. And
it's a
there's something called spiritual martyrdom that's kind of like a big thing for a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs. And it really is like essentially your worth and work is tied up in self-sacrifice. And
Mhm.
this comes from, like old past lives, shit that happened to you as a kid, all the things. But essentially, like, I am not doing good unless I'm suffering.
Yeah,
So it could be there's a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs that I meet and they're like doing all the things and they're volunteering and they're helping this person, they're helping that person, but they're dying inside, they're crumbling, they're falling to pieces. Like,
yeah.
what is happening? And working for free or peanuts.
Right. Well,
That's
and
not
don't you
okay.
think there's some conditioning in the mind that says, though, if I'm serving and if I'm being of service, I don't need anything in return. There's something there. Like I don't need anything in return. There's something in us that does that, you know?
Yes, there is something in us that does
Mhm.
that. And I think that there's a lot of misconception about like what money is. And we talked a little
Yeah.
bit about that, in our pre-show chat too, like what money is and what our expectations are around that. And essentially, you guys, everything's energy. We know that everything's energy. If you're in this space, you're listening to Lindsay and I, you know that. And with that being said, we must have equal exchange, equal magic for the service that you're offering and the price that you're receiving, because life and the evolution of humanity really depends on us being interconnected and having even exchange. Otherwise, it's imbalance.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah. No, you're right. You know, I was
Hmm.
thinking about this before we started talking today, but I think it's relevant right now. Is there's this, I think about the world before it became super modern and corporate owned and everybody's a cog in the machine. And I thought about this, like, because what you do, you're helping people with their spiritual gifts and to sell them, basically to help serve other people. I feel
Right.
like if we were still living in that time where we were more village type people, that, you go down to the village and, go get your wisdom from grandma and grandpa, or here's the spiritual healer, go down to that. But today, because it's kind of, we're in the background, right? Because of the conglomerate, the huge corporate machine is in the way. So I think like what you're doing and what you're offering and what a lot of us are doing by helping and serving other people is kind of the way it used to be, more of that traditional type thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And even when you got your healing and messages from grandma or from the village elder, you offered something in
Yeah.
return.
Right.
You didn't it wasn't just a free thing. And
Yeah.
that there's so much around that and there's so much healing. If we're gonna elevate as humanity and as society, we really need to move past this and recognize that everything is equal. Everything needs balance. Money is part of nature. Money is part of the connectivity with us all, us enabling us to give, to receive all the things. And that requires balance. It really does.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, maybe
Hmm.
we could shift gears here and start diving into this dark
I
night.
mean, we should. Yeah, sidetrack. Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, babe. So tell me what we were talking about the dark night of the soul because we've been through some fun shit and we're not saying it's a contest, you guys. Everybody goes through this at some
Yeah.
point. So Lindsay, why don't you break down like what is the dark night of the soul? What are we even talking about today?
Well, a dark night of the soul, I kind of want to reframe and say it's
Mm.
the dark night of the mind, because I have,
Yes,
I have
thank
this,
you.
yeah, I have this feeling that, and I have this whole thing about the soul, but I don't, if the soul is like a replica of home or its perfection and its finest, I don't see how it's ever been broken or harmed or there's a tear in it or whatever you want to call it. I think it's the mind that is the problem. And so it's the dark side of the mind because the mind is losing itself, it's losing its identity, and we are identifying with it.
Yes.
So when
Hmm.
something happens to you, and it doesn't really matter in form how this occurs, right? I think
Right.
there's a lot of misconceptions that you have to be praying in a monastery to go through a dark night of the soul like the old contemplatives or, I don't think that's necessary. I think anything in the world can happen in form that's going to wake you up from this identification with a self or a small egoic self or whatever term you want to give it. And to me, it's a dark side of the mind because the mind is the one that's going to kick and scream. And it seems in my personal experience, and you can share yours, but when that starts to fall apart and when there's cracks in the soil and everything starts to crumble, you no longer are who you thought you were. And there's an emptying of the self. There's an emptying of everything, almost like a nothingness. There could be a feeling of deep, deep void, darkness. And in that void, there's no divinity yet. There's like, it's like bleak, and it's this very difficult time. And you can have many of these, it's not like you just have one, you could have many of them. But over time, there's this limbo, right? I think it's like a limbo period. So you're in this space where you don't yet feel this, I don't know, peace, whatever you want to call it. And you're stranded. And that's what I call the dark side of the mind. It's like it's panicked, it's emptied, and it doesn't feel anything else. So that's how I kind of describe it. What do you?
I love that. I love that. Thank you for rephrasing that. And I think we use that phrase because it's kind of
It's
it's
marketable.
kind of the viral thing to say, whatever.
It is. It's what people
The
say.
PC thing to say, Dark
Yeah.
Night of the Soul. But I absolutely agree. And that's one of the things I work with my clients is hacking it's not just mindset, it's like hacking the system in the brain, hacking the operating system in this meat sack that's causing us suffering. And a lot of human suffering, um, with the exception of physical pain, because that shit is real.
Yeah.
A lot of human suffering is in the mind.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is we are attached to the expectation of how things will be,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, I thought I was going to live in this house forever, but there's, the roof's falling apart and whatever, something happened and now we have to move out. Or I thought I was going to get this job, but over here, someone else has said I have to do this. So it's all about, oh my God, this is what I thought was going to happen, but something else is opening up over here, but it's terrible.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And once we span back, and the truth of the matter is, once you get to the other side of it, which you must, my friend, you must get to the other side of it. That's the whole goal of this physical journey. Once you get to the other side of it, you can start seeing, oh shit, okay, so this happened because of this, and this opened up for me because this happened. It starts making sense. But when you're in it and you're attached to how you thought things should have gone,
Right.
that's the long and the short of most of the suffering that we have as humanity.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we think we're in control and have, we know what's best for us, right? Like, especially when you're a young person and you're going through your life,
Yeah,
we think we got it all figured out. I mean, if you've had kids, they think they got it all figured out. And it's just like, yeah.
yeah,
So it is. It's a expectation that the mind is putting on how it should be. You're exactly right. And the
right.
whole idea of should is kind of crazy. What do you mean should? How do I know it should be?
Yeah.
And the
And the
dark
truth
side,
is, yeah, go ahead, love.
well, the dark side of the dark night of the mind, let's say, is that letting go of the expectation of where you thought your life should be, or what you think is best. It's kind of an arrogant position sometimes because you're like, I don't know what's best. I mean, spirit's pulling me this way and
Yeah,
clearly trying to show me something else, and I'm in firm denial or resistance of it.
right. It's so true. And that's exactly what I was just going to say. You were saying spirit's trying to show me something. The truth is when we are going through these moments, and everything is temporary, by the way, moments, it is for our evolution. It is for our highest good. It is at some point an answer to your prayer. And again, probably not how you thought it was going to go. But guess what? You got the shit and it's time to walk through it.
Exactly. So, Iena, how did you walk through the fire? What tell us about
Holy
your
shit.
yeah, how did you become the psychic healer? I know you had a lot of, shamanic training, so can we get into that? Tell us about your how'd you do
Okay,
all
in
this? You
30
said
seconds or less. No, it's not going to be
27
30
years is
seconds.
27 years is a long time. So what
Yeah,
happened?
it's almost half. I'm 53 now, so
Yes, you've had
sweet
experience.
mama. Okay, and I look damn good. I know
You
that.
do.
Okay,
No, you,
so
you can't see you. You do look good.
so interestingly enough, my spiritual stuff actually started with a health crisis, but it all kind of culminated all at the same time. So I was 29 years old and I had an infant and a 2.5-year old. And I was passing out after I ate. I was a stay-at-home mom. So there were moments where my children were unattended because I was not conscious.
Yeah.
Okay. I went to all the doctors. I went to endocrinologists. I went to specialists. I went to everybody you should go to, you guys. Lots and lots of people. Nobody could figure it out. The majority of the people that I saw were like, well, you look really healthy on paper because my numbers, quote unquote, were fine. You
Hmm.
look healthy on paper, so have these antidepressants. And then, of course, I would burst into tears saying, the only thing that I'm depressed about is you can't figure out what the hell's wrong with me. And I'm passing out when I'm supposed to be taking care of my children.
Exactly.
And they're like, yep, depressed. Here you go, honey. And they hand me the script. So I dove into my own. This was before Google, you guys. This was like, you got to go to the fucking library. You got to get books out. You know,
You
this
got to
was not like, let me
yeah.
just Google my symptoms and see what, WebMD says, which I don't recommend, by the way. Um, and at the same time, I was hearing, again, stay-at-home mom, I'm hearing disembodied footsteps. I know that's what it was now. Before, I did not know what that was. I was laying down for a nap and I'd hear footsteps coming towards me. I thought it was my children getting out of bed when it's nap time, and I'd sit up and they'd be gone. And I'd go back into their bedrooms and like separately open their doors. I'm like, damn, they're fast. How did they do that?
So let me
Shit.
ask you this real quick. So you're hearing
Well,
like actual, no, I'm serious, like loud footsteps in the house, and you think it's the kids.
was hearing, okay, so do you know what it sounds like when it's when the room's quiet and someone's stepping on carpet?
Yeah.
Sort of like a
Hmm.
that's what I heard. And it sounded like a child. It wasn't like long strides. It was like a do 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 do. Yeah.
Quick little steps. Okay.
Yeah. And it always stopped like at the foot of my bed.
Hmm.
And then I'd sit up. I'm a light sleeper. I'd sit up and be like, where the hell did it go?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that was happening at the same time. I also had one of our cats. I think I don't remember. If she may have been the only cat we had at the time. She stayed in our bedroom closet during this whole thing, and she refused to eat. She was losing tons of weight. I took her to the vet. We did all the tests, everything. She's quote unquote fine, but not eating, losing a shitload of weight, and refusing to leave that spot. I found out this is even how I found this woman is even like a trip, you guys. So I was selling something called Herbalife, which is like herbal supplements, right?
Yeah.
And I had this woman call me, and we were living in New Jersey at the time, and she says, I found your flyer in the Delaware Mall for Herbalife. And I was like, I've never been to the Delaware Mall. That's odd. So I'm like, okay. So we're talking, and she's like in mid-sentence, and then she started saying something like, and I know your son is suffering greatly. I can feel him and I can see it deeply in his blue eyes. And I just started bawling. She's on the phone. I never met this woman. She doesn't know shit about me.
Yeah.
So this woman supposedly was like in training, quote unquote, to clear houses or whatever. I don't know. But she and another woman came. We fed them dinner and they cleared our house. We had spirits in the house and there was a portal hello, in the bedroom closet, right where my cat
Wow.
was laying. Her and she was absorbing the energy to protect the family. And once they put the spirits back in, which I was told was there were several, two little children, which by the way, I forgot to share this shit. It's such a long story, but my son would be like screaming and pointing at something and throwing tissues at something.
Hmm.
And my daughter, who was an infant at the time, I would pick her up and walk her around the room, and she would stay fixated on one thing the whole time. I couldn't see it.
So the kids were seeing it. Yeah.
The kids were seeing it. And then I had a 4-foot aloe plant, which was massive. And it was part of the family, you guys, because like if my kids like bumped into it and broke it, I would like my kids would apologize to it. Like this was like
Big deal.
that he was our friend, and it shriveled up into nothing. And I found out later that aloe plants absorb negativity, and it literally was like we had to throw it out. It was completely dead. So they put these spirits back in through the portal, closed it, and the instant they closed it, it felt like the difference between like when you're up, and we were upstairs. It was always a little warmer upstairs. I just assumed it was, heat rises, whatever. It felt like somebody turned the air conditioning on immediately.
Huh.
And my little tiny cat that was wilting away to nothing just got up and walked away and never laid there again.
Wow.
And I was like, oh shit, there's something going on here.
In the house. Yeah.
So that was and I always, I used to say, I no longer say that, because when I was younger, I would say my lessons seem to come as a frying pan over the back of the head. And it really was those two things. So with the health, I found a doctor of integrative medicine that was trained in Switzerland. And he found that I had acute reactive hypoglycemia and adrenal failure, which means even if I smelled sugar, my blood sugar would drop. So I was eating food that was making me sick. And the gratitude I have around that was so intense, because I learned that food can be medicine or poison. And I pass that along to all my clients. That's one of the things we usually start with, which people are usually like, I'm depressed. Why do you care what I'm eating? I'm like, hello, there's some food that causes depression and anxiety. We need to get this shit right now.
Well, it's chemical.
And
It's
yes,
chemical.
and then of
Yeah.
course, the whole thing with spirits, I was like, okay, well, obviously there's something I'm not seeing that my
Yeah.
kids were seeing. So what does that mean? And I started buying books and CDs, people, that was the CD
Oh yeah.
era.
PD.
Listening to the CDs of Sylvia Browne and James Van Praagh and John Edward. Only a few people probably know who these people are, but that's okay.
Yeah. I
And
know.
then, yeah, it's like,
They were on the forefront of like that new age thing, you know.
right. Well, I don't know about the forefront, but I was in there
They-
somewhere.
Yeah,
And
they were popular. Let's put it that
some
way.
of the OGs, yeah,
Yeah.
some of the OGs. It wasn't a saturated space. So that's how things progressed for us. And after we cleared the house, then I was like, you know what? It's time to travel. And we sold our house and bought a motorhome and traveled around the US for a bit, about a year. And I was doing my little chakra meditations, when we are going to different campgrounds and doing yoga, stuff like that. And at some point I was like, I'm like stuck. You can only self-teach for so long, and then you need someone else to guide you. And we've purchased a house, and we were unpacking the motorhome that we'd traveled in for a year. And I found this flyer that I picked up right before we left. And I found it at a health food store in New Jersey. I literally don't remember packing it, but it was a flyer about um, increasing your intuitive abilities. It was a year-long program. It included shamanism and all the things. And I was like, oh shit. Oh my God. And I called the lady and I was like, I don't even remember like packing this, but it's been with me the whole year with my books, which I read every day. So I don't know how I didn't see it, but hello, spirit. So
You're ready to see it.
oh my gosh. So that was all of that stuff that felt like the end of my world really was just the beginning of something so expansive I could have never, ever anticipated.
It's funny you say that. That is so true. It's like if we're talking about the dark night of the mind
Right.
sees it as an ending, but it's really a beginning, but you can't see it when it's happening. Yeah.
Hell no.
No.
Hell no. Yeah. And even with the health stuff, it was like there were several family events where my blood sugar dropped so quickly that I had family members spoon feeding me yogurt to try to help me gain consciousness. Like people were holding me up and like,
Wow.
sticking the spoon in my mouth and stuff. And it was just like, I got two kids. Like, when is this shit gonna stop? Like, I got stuff to do. This is not
Yeah.
cool. But it
So
was a culmination of 29 years of eating the typical American diet, the sugar, the Oreos, the Pepsi, those were my favorite things, and now I wouldn't even touch it.
yeah. So
No,
have you
I
figured that
have
out
no
now?
interest.
Do you
What's that?
have you been able to regulate that now, the sugar and everything?
My blood sugar is regulated, but I have no taste for sugar. I have no interest in it. I've avoided it because it's very inflammatory and because it caused me such
Yeah.
um, problems, we'll
Yeah.
say. Um, Yeah, so I just say I know better.
Yeah.
But of course, if you go out to eat, there's sugar in there's sugar in typical table salt. I mean, there's sugar in so much shit
It's in
in
everything.
our society, but I avoid it in my own daily life, and occasionally something's in there. But if something tastes like sugar, oh, I have no, thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
once you
I'd rather
wean
eat
off,
cat shit.
yeah. Once
No.
you wean off the sweet taste, if you've done it long enough, it really doesn't taste good afterwards. It's way too much. Just like salt too. If you've weaned off a little
Yeah,
bit of salt and
yeah,
stuff, and then you have some
yeah,
salt, it's like
yeah.
medicine to the mouth. Yeah.
It really is. I prefer like honey or a little bit of maple syrup. I'm
Yeah.
cool with that, but I don't really, most things that people sweeten, I'm like, no, I don't want that. It just doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel nurturing to me.
So, can I ask this? Let me go back to you feeling you're hearing the footsteps in your house.
Ooh. Hmm.
So, that clicked in my head. Like, so you're obviously open back then, right?
I
So,
guess, yeah, I
you
guess
must have
so.
heard it if you heard that happening. So, was that at all part of your journey into learning more about like the psychic arts that you went in and did all of that? Did that trigger you to do that? Or,
I mean, I did eventually learn to clear houses, which I thought was pretty cool.
oh, that's,
Send spirits back home for sure. And
yeah,
and I guess, I mean, honestly, we're all born with six senses, not five. It's really just a matter of cultivating that muscle and using it once more. Like I have two arms that are fully functional now, but if I chose in childhood not to use my left arm for 50 years, it would look pretty gross and it would be fairly useless. But if I decided at some point, you know what, I'd like to use this other arm that I was born with, I would start with small exercises. I would strengthen it. And
yeah,
before I knew it, I'd be like, holy shit, I can't imagine my life with only one arm again.
yeah,
This is amazing.
yeah,
And the same thing is true for our six senses. When I was little, I talked to animals all the time. I did all kinds of, like, I wandered off and would like play with the field mice and pick them up and stuff like that. And
yeah.
butterflies, I was the kid that always had critters on them. And people were like, how the fuck is that? Like, how did you do that? I'm like,
Who is this kid?
I was like Snow White kind of, I guess, with all the
Oh
animals.
yeah, singing to the animals and
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, minus the coma, of course.
So you kind of had a little bit mini passing
Well,
out.
kind of, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know.
So your health journey was big, it sounds like. How long did this take you before you really
Ooh.
were able to like, did you stop passing out? I mean, when did that stop?
That was so, um, the thing that really helped, in addition to like not learning at that time, there were 36 names in ingredient lists for sugar. That was a long time ago. I'm sure there are many, many more. So I studied all those and learned to read labels. I threw out a lot of food and started all over again. But apparently, I can't remember what it's called now, but the adrenal glands um, produce a type of hormone, I think it is. And mine didn't produce any. So that's why I was exhausted and passing out all the time. So, I would take micro doses of that. And it took me, I would say, at least 2 years before I started feeling like a human being again. Like,
Oh,
and at some point I remember saying, I understand why pit bulls attack people. I have a theory that pit bulls have adrenal issues
ah,
because I had a Jekyll and Hyde reaction to certain sounds.
mm,
I would be like very calm and then I would hear like I remember one time we had a big Suburban at the time, and it was an automatic, but just the humming of the gear shifting, I was just like, oh my God. And I would start like cursing and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, my
Well,
husband at the time's like, what? I don't even hear it. And I was just like, "Ugh."
what do you mean you don't hear it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like nails on a chalkboard to me. And I did have that Jekyll and Hyde, like even when I was home with my kids, something would happen and I would just snap. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, I understand pit bulls now. Like they
Yeah.
have adrenal issues.
Well,
If someone wants to research that and get back to me, let me know. But that's my theory.
well, you bring up a good point, actually, because today there's a lot of people with really crazy mental issues and
Mm.
extremes, right? Very extreme. And the mental health world is wanting to term it a mental problem, and they put them on all these drugs. But the question I have is, do we have some chemical, biological issues hormonally that people are lacking, and it is causing these crazy behaviors? But they're putting them
Sure.
on all this stuff that really is not doing anything, maybe making the situation worse. But like you're pointing out, is there a chemical hormonal problem in the body? It's biological, not,
Oh,
mental.
sure. Yeah. I mean, for anybody who wants to investigate that too, there's something called nutritional psychology that is a science that's directly links the food to your mood, your food to
Yeah.
your mood. Um, And there is a book called This Is Your Brain on Food by Dr. Uma Naidu. It is amazing. And she is, I think it's a psychotherapist and a trained chef, and she is a nutritional psychologist. And it's very interesting because it kind of breaks down like, okay, this stuff causes inflammation, which causes depression and anxiety. And this is what heals your gut microbiome, which is all fucked up when you eat,
Yeah.
tons of wheat and sugar and all that stuff. And this is how you shift your mood from internal because 90% of the neurons in our body are found in our gut. Neurons are the things that signal our brains
Yeah.
for mood. They're in the gut.
Yeah.
It makes sense that what you eat is connected to your food. So, yeah, it's huge. It's
It
huge.
is.
And that's, yeah.
Which is why you starting your clients on some basic food things makes 100% sense. And they're like,
Yeah, but people are
what?
like, I'm here to like develop my business and talk about my psychic blocks. Why are you asking me what I eat every day? And it's not everyone, but if I see some things that sort of like are checking some boxes for me, I'm like, we need to look at what you're eating, honey.
Yeah. Well, especially if you see these extreme things happening. Yeah. Very.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that was my one of my little life lessons. So, Lindsay, I'm excited to hear about your experience. And we can talk about shamanism later if you want, but
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I
it's your
think what
turn, babe.
I'm going to share might lead into it a little bit.
Oh,
So,
sweet. Okay, go ahead,
I
babe.
am not a shaman and I'm not into shamanism, but I had an experience that led me to research it. So, um, yeah, my life, I was, 26 years old. I was a yoga teacher. I owned a yoga studio and just recently married. Thought life was amazing. You know, I really had not had too much challenge in life. I kind of, grew up very, good family. Nothing had really challenged me yet. I was kind of went with the flow kind of life. And I had probably at this stage of my life, I've been practicing yoga for probably 10 years and did it a lot. And one particular morning, it was 2003, I was down getting ready to teach an early morning yoga class. And as I go and walk in the door, I remember very distinctively, putting my hand on the knob and feeling this very obvious pulling and shift at the center of my being, like the solar plexus. Just a real rumbling, a movement that I had never, felt before. And immediately I was like, what is that? It caught my attention immediately because I'd never had a movement like that inside my body, my physical body.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always felt so sound and solid and all these things. And I proceeded to go in to teach the class. And as I'm going in, all of a sudden this movement just kind of shifts into my back. And I start feeling this movement push up my spine, like an energy that at the time, and keep in mind, I have no idea what's happening to me while this is going on.
Right.
This has been over 22 years ago. So at the time, I'm like in there talking. I was doing two things at once. I'm speaking and witnessing this experience, which was
Whoa.
very
multitask.
strange. Yeah, I was always kind of multitasking, so maybe it prepared me to deal with this. But
Shit.
anyway, it was like a freight train just coming up my back, and it keeps pushing and pushing. Meanwhile, autopilot, the cues of teaching are just automatically flowing from my mouth. I'm, probably no one in the room really noticed that anything was going on, but I, in my mind, am watching this movement, and it starts pushing up the back of my head and the base of my skull, and it's got a lot of pressure in it. And I'm like, what? The whole time I'm like, what is that? And there's like a heat just blowing like a volcano. And I was teaching in a room 105 degrees, so I was used to heat. It wasn't like, what is this heat? It was like a heat I'd never felt, like an otherworldly just, and I'm sweating and it's pushing in my head. It feels like it's gonna just blast out of my head. And eventually I start seeing like, I don't know, it felt like kind of hazy, like at the time I thought, am I going to drop? But I didn't feel dizzy. It wasn't
Yeah.
a typical, I've been lightheaded in my life. It wasn't like that. It was like almost like, am I going to lose it? Am I losing consciousness, or am I going into another realm? And finally, I just felt this quaking. It was just like, I felt like my every cell was just vibrating. And I, made it to this 25-minute period in, and asked a friend of mine that just happened to show up that morning, another teacher, if she would just step in. I am not feeling well. And I didn't really expand. I just said, I'm not feeling well. Would you mind taking over? And she did. And I went into the office and I laid on my back. I'm just looking up at the ceiling. And it's like I feel this streaming. I've never felt anything like it. It was just going everywhere, head to toe. And I'm, tears. I'm terrified, right, of and I just had these three words, like, what was that? What just happened to me? It just blindsided me, So from that moment on, my entire life literally just flipped upside down. It was like somebody turned on a switch inside of it. It was on off, and it just flipped it on. And I felt like something came in and took over my whole body. That's what it felt like. And I always thought that was weird to say, because I sound like a crazy person, if I say that out loud. And at the time, I had no clue what I was talking about. So it was the whole thing was weird. Well, from that moment on, I started developing like just very strange, bizarre physical sensations all over the body, a lot of tingling, a general just illness, a general feeling of just being so sick. I felt like I was having pressure on the top of my head, like somebody was just leaving bricks and tightening my head with a belt. I mean, it was crazy. All these things. And I was in the doctor, as you said, over and over and over, and nothing. But I had this one pivotal event happen where I felt this movement up my back. And, I'd say this to the doctor and they'd just stare at me like, what are you talking about? And I knew I was in the wrong. I just knew they don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm battling this for several years, and I'm still I owned this yoga studio. I'm still doing the basic stuff, not teaching as much, but I'm still functionable. But I feel this general feeling of movement in the body all the time. Like something just came in, and now I'm just vibrating, And I got used to that. It started to be kind of familiar. But other things started happening over time where I just started being very sensitive to sound and to large environments. And I was somebody who grew up performing in front of large audiences. So it wasn't like, oh, you're anxious. I'm like, no, I'm feeling like everything in this space is now in my field. So it almost felt like a boundary, like a veil was, leaving me, that I used to feel this separation between everything, that I was in my little bubble without knowing it. I didn't realize that until it started to fade. I started having these crazy dreams, like stuff like I would be looking in the mirror and see a demonic, evil, dark, something was throwing me up the ceiling, I'm being thrown around. I mean, it was just, I'd wake up like, what the hell is happening to me? It wasn't just these physical symptoms, like something other, and I knew deep down something is going on here. So I did a lot of research into Kundalini. I studied that, realized, well, these symptoms are very similar, to what they would call disruptive Kundalini.
Yeah.
But it started to even feel like deeper than that, because I felt like I was dying. I felt like some part of me was being erased. Like I would have these moments, speaking of having young children. I mean, let me keep this in mind. This is going on for years. I eventually have 4 little kids, and I would just be like in the kitchen, making making a meal for the children at night. And all of a sudden I would feel that void, just of emptying of everything I thought I was. And I would just feel like I was nothing, like almost like an extinguished feeling, like annihilation. And I would just beeline it for the couch and be like, what is happening? Without the feeling of feeling faint or weak or nothing like that. It's almost like this existential crisis I was having, and it just wouldn't leave me. Well, this is all building and building and building. And I didn't realize at the time, as hindsight, like you said, is always 2020. If I had just known these were little preparation stages for what was coming, maybe I would have been like taking notes. Like you said, I'm just going to take notes. But no, I was terrified. Nobody could really help me. And this all led me to this other pivotal moment where I'm driving my 4 kids down the highway in Colorado. And like I said earlier, I had been fairly familiar with this vibrational feeling in my body. But in this particular time, it just starts to pick up and intensify. And I noticed this pressure in the third eye, behind the third eye, like, and I mean in the head, like in the middle of the head. And I'm driving and it's like building, it's growing and expanding like a balloon. It's just pushing and pushing and pushing. And I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me right now, right? This is not happening to me again. Like, I was just like, oh no. And I knew intuitively that this pressure building was gonna burst. I could just tell. Even though I had no idea what it was, I just knew that this thing's gonna pop. And all of a sudden I'm driving and it just pop. And there's no pain, like there's no pain involved or anything. It was just this popping of pressure. And then in that instant moment, my visual field, like I didn't realize before, I was like in a little bit of a tunnel vision, I guess. And everything just opened up and I felt like I was part of everything, all the car, everything around me. And I was like, I got to get off the road. I immediately pulled the car off the road and sat there and felt another powerful energy that went into my chest, rolling down through the abdomen. Like it's like somebody took a rolling pin or a roll fin and just pushed as hard as they could down into my, just like something came in and down into me, my limb. I was just sitting there like, obviously I was a mess. I was terrified. I was crying and my kids are watching the DVD like nothing happened.
Hold over, it's all good. We still got 30 minutes on the DVD. It's fine.
Well, at least they didn't, they were so little, they had no idea.
Oh, good. Okay.
And I was and from that moment on, long story short, I had to call and have my husband and my brother come get me off the highway. But from that moment on, my entire experience of the world shifted so radically. And I couldn't at first make out what is so different, what is happening. And several months go by and I still feel this very expansive, like I am everywhere. There's no boundary with me anymore. And that, when you're doing yoga over and over and over again, you are focused and you're just locked onto that focal point, and that center of your being is kind of what you're developing. And I had realized that this center that I had created so strongly was now vanishing. And there was it felt like I was not referencing back on myself anymore. Everything became this external, outward thing. And my nervous system was just not ready for that amount of information, I guess you could say, to come in. So fight or flight became a real problem because everything was coming at me. And I just didn't feel like I was separate from anything anymore. Now, visually, I could see that I'm separate. I see you there. But I feel this interconnected thing all the time. And over the years, that was in 2011. And it took me 5 years. I had to step out of the world completely because it was too much. I was totally isolated and really in the dark night, big time. And finally, I realized I need to learn how to move with this, or I'm going to
Yeah.
wallow away, lose my family, my husband, and lose everything. That was my mentality. It was like, I didn't really
Yeah.
want that. I didn't want to lose that. We had a nice life together. It wasn't about any of that. It was just, how am I going to move forward with this amount of energy that I feel in the system and still maintain some sort of normalcy in the world? So it was like baby steps. How do you get back out? How do you, when you're that in tune all the time, like a radio is what I felt like. How do you build up, like you said, tools? How do you build the tools to get through what you're used to, what your new experience of life is? And so it's taken a long, long time. My life is very different than it used to be, but I am now like, I'm not the only one out there that goes through this stuff. It's crazy, but I want to be there to help people understand that you can move through. There are ways to get through your new experience of life. And looking back, as terrified as I was, and as horrible and as a lot of resistance I put into it, I wouldn't change it.
That is amazing. Yeah.
I see things are so different now. It's just such a different way to be. And do I still have my own issues? Absolutely. Do I still struggle with too much energy sometimes? Absolutely. But I'm not worried about it like I used to be,
That's amazing. So you really, essentially tapped into your divinity. You had your wings out, baby, because you were feeling that connection to every living being. And ultimately, that's who we are, right? We're all, Dr. Wayne Dyer used to say, we are all but drops in an ocean.
Yeah.
And when you take a cup and you put some ocean water in the cup, there's no denying it's still ocean water.
Right.
But we in these meat sacks tend to identify with the cup, with the vessel.
Yeah.
But we're still part of the ocean. We're still part of the divine. And this shell doesn't change any of that, but it's
No.
challenging.
Well, that was the difficult part, because when you are solely identified as a
Right.
body, and you may conceptually, and this is the thing I want to point out, I was always kind of open to the idea that, hey, I know we're all connected, but I'm only having this conceptual understanding of it.
Right.
So when I'm talking about the embodiment of it, or the experience of it, is so totally different than thinking or talking about it. And so
Yes.
that's something that I just felt really strongly about sharing, because it's a totally different ballgame. You're talking about your whole experience is now going to change, and it's going to be hard, because you're identifying as a body, right? Even if you think you're still a spirit, we all want to say, oh, I know I'm a spirit. I know that. But when you feel the solidity, kind of like you don't feel that as much anymore, and you start feeling, it's bizarre. I don't know how to explain it properly, because there's really no language.
Yeah. We don't have a lot of language for that stuff for sure.
No.
So how does that tie into shamanism? Because you prefaced shamanism a little bit before that story.
When I was feeling so ill and like something was taking over my body, I started diving into, because I was getting no help with medical doctors or alternative practitioners, none of them. And they were all very nice, but they just they couldn't help me. So I started looking into Kundalini, and then I came across shamanic initiation, which really resonated with me, because, that's been going on for eons, where somebody in the, shamanic tribe or whatever just suddenly basically goes like they go mad, and they have a terrible illness, and they, have to go through that whole thing to kind of heal them. It's not, basically they're accepting their role, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Before it changes. And so I started researching it, and it just made a lot of sense to me. It was very comforting, because when you don't find anything anywhere else, and you read some ancient information that points that, oh, this was a thing, then you're kind of like, oh, well, why is that not around anymore? Why don't we even talk about that? That's where my link was there.
Yeah, for sure. And, for me too, it was the desperation of what else is there?
Yeah.
What else is there? And it really sucks that a lot of times it can be that way for us, but
Mhm.
it's also we can have great reverence for the teaching and the way that we found it as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and for me too, it was the woman that I studied with for a year. She also offered an additional thing, a 4-day shamanic retreat, and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And I had gotten some messages around being a shaman. I didn't really know what that meant
Yeah.
from classmates and stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. Sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, this woman, for the critics, this woman has native blood. So let's just preface it with that. She wasn't just another white chick. Um, so we ran this 4-day shamanic retreat, and that was, and I think we talked a little bit before, not in this talk, but about how everything is interconnected. And that's essentially, for me, my takeaway was everything is interconnected. The sky, the rocks, the creepy crawlies, the winged ones, they're all our brothers and sisters. We're all connected.
Yeah.
And when you tap into that, and that is now actually how I see practice with money as well, just that interconnection. When
Yeah.
you tap into that, everything changes.
Yeah.
Everything changes, and it's coming back for me. Like I used to advertise that I was a shaman because I was initiated in several different things around shamanism.
Yeah.
And I don't anymore because a lot of I'm going to say quote unquote shamans are people who essentially just do ayahuasca ceremonies.
Mm.
And there are shamans, I will say there are shamans, yes, that know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
They're generally not typical Caucasian people from America. They're from
Yeah.
indigenous tribes.
Yeah.
And that's, if you're not familiar with the word shaman, it's any indigenous tribe has their healer or medicine person. That's essentially what a shaman is.
Yeah.
And what they do is they call on the messages and medicine of nature, essentially, for the healing of the person that's laying in front of them. Sometimes they go out on journeys and stay like on a mountaintop or meditate under a tree for a couple days until they get the information they need, and then they come back and they know what herbs they need, or in my case, what energy of the herbs we need. So,
Yeah.
with all things being equal and everything is energy, you can call upon the energy of that specific herb to go to that person. You don't need the herb itself.
Right. Well, that makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
really interesting.
So, and
So,
that's the same for crystals and stuff too. So all you healers out there, if you're like, this person needs a labradorite and I don't have it, just ask the labradorite to come. Okay. That's all you need.
right.
You
So
don't need the things.
yeah, I mean, if you're talking about everything has the vibrational frequency,
Yeah.
you don't really need the actual thing. Yeah.
We don't.
No.
We don't.
Well, and
It's fun.
then I have this idea that, people that want to heal their bodies, like, you're talking about this, that, we have to have these physical things around us, but can't we just call in the energy, like you just said, use the vibration of our own field to start that process?
Oh, so yeah, for sure. And when we talk about healing peeps, we have to say we're not doctors, we're not pharmacists. You know the deal. You're responsible for your own health care. But all things being equal, yes, we were created to heal ourselves. Given the correct environment, and that means external, what you put in your body, the chemicals that you use, don't use, are attributing to that. All of that stuff is created, and it's all in mind, body, spirit. And that's also how I work too. Like, we've got to deal with the operating system, the meat sack, and the spiritual all in one. And
Right.
when you can do that and you find that balance, your cells find the homeostasis that they really have needed all along, and we're able to heal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure everybody that's listening at some point knows someone who never seems to get sick, or,
Hmm.
like,
Or the people that
I'm
are
sort
always
of,
sick. Yeah.
how about you? What's your
Um,
experience like?
with illness?
Yeah.
Well, one thing I want,
Versus people around you, I think
oh,
is,
people around me are not sick very often.
that's
My
great.
kids were never sick, but I also raised them. I was onto the food thing. Part of my own journey was nothing I could do made me feel any better, so I went down the whole nutritional thing and used
Ah,
food as
mm,
also. But one thing I want to ask you while we're sitting here is,
okay.
because it happened to me that we're talking about energy as healing. Well, I would get these downloads throughout the process. They would just be this high frequency energy coming through the crown of my head, and it would just flood the whole body. And in the beginning, because I wasn't totally used to it, it would just kind of take me out. And I don't mean like I was on the floor, like,
Like a
like,
fish out of water,
no,
like
no, no.
flopping around. No. Okay.
If you actually saw me, you probably wouldn't even know. But
Yeah.
to me,
Yeah.
I felt this, it just was like wiping me out. But I noticed that it would like clean me out. So I'd be beelining it for the bathroom. My bowels were
Ooh.
eliminating. And this happened for years. So it was like a natural uh, detoxification from the energy itself, which is what it
That's
felt like
amazing.
to me, which is
Yeah.
weird. It's like I say that out loud and people are like, what are you talking about? But I could only feel it. It was just this crazy vibrational frequency that would roll through me, and then I'd be on the toilet, And
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I mean that totally makes sense. And I think it Tesla that said that New Age medicine would be vibration,
well,
or
I
maybe it
thought
was
so.
sound. I can't remember. But
That's what
but you know, and scientists are just figuring that shit out now. And it's
now.
all energy. It's all energy. And
Oh
for
yeah.
sure, I've had experiences too where I've received healings
Hmm.
through practitioners or practice, and I've gotten that, and I've also given healings where people were like, "I got to run to the bathroom," like, "You go, babe."
Yes.
Oh, yes, that's a thing
So
for
it is
sure.
a thing, and it's like a
Yeah,
clearing. I look at it, it's just clearing you out.
yeah, detox for sure, absolutely.
And the
Yeah,
symptoms with detox are not always pleasant. And so then, you start thinking, oh, there's something wrong with me. But sometimes it's kind of just uncomfortable for a while until it passes.
sure. Yeah, yeah, and it's different for everybody. I tell a lot of people, I usually say not everyone experiences detox.
Mhm.
However, if you do, because I don't want to implant that, like this is how you're going to feel, because we're very
Right.
suggestible as human beings. However, if you're starting to feel a little sick or like you're coming down with something, please know that it's your body is physically catching up with what was done energetically. So the stuff that was removed, your body is processing that and releasing it. It can take up to 3 days. Drink lots of water, rest when you're tired, and take a salt bath because the salt actually will pull the stuff out physically and your body doesn't have to work so hard or jump in the ocean, you guys.
Yeah.
So so yeah, and of course, having lots of quick bowel releases is part of detox as well. It's the body purging,
Right.
right? So that makes
Exactly.
sense. Sometimes people get headaches. I mean, it's different for every person. It really
It
just
is.
depends on how intense it is for you and how long it's been since you've detoxed
Right.
sometimes.
Well, for me at the time, I was 26. I had never done anything like that. So,
Mm,
you think you're healthy and everything's great. And,
for sure.
but,
Yeah, you look great, but you're a shit inside,
but you're
literally
not.
and metaphorically.
Well, and tying that into the dark night of the soul or the mind, I mean, when things happen to your body, it's very disturbing to your mind. I mean, incredibly
Can
disturbing.
be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it can be. And it is interesting too. We're talking about how everything's connected and it's all the same and it's all part of the mind. And for me, starting from that point when I started healing, I realized that, we do have control over what happens with our bodies, and people are going to send me hate mail, and that's okay. Um, you know,
you're
it's
welcoming.
hard for us to accept our own role in our own suffering. It sucks. Nobody wants to admit that. But
Yeah.
when we start going down that rabbit hole and realize that, it's a choice, it's a choice. It's always a choice. Your thoughts are a choice.
Yeah.
Your suffering is a choice. You eating the fast food versus the organic food is a choice. Every micro decision that you make in your life is a choice. Whether you're going to binge watch something on Netflix or meditate, that's a choice.
Yeah.
And every decision that you make is going to cultivate the person that you become. And you can always change, always.
Well, and that's a great place to maybe like segue because we're going to talk next time about the tools to use. And you just made a great statement there. You always have a choice. And maybe we could lead into that next time. Because I think that when you're in the midst of hell, like in the dark night, you don't think you have a choice in the matter. So maybe we can leave it there for today and then pick up on that next time.
Stay tuned. Yeah, so we're going to dive into some tools and techniques that helped us personally, and that will hopefully help you move forward, whether you're suffering now or just to put in your back pocket for the future. Shall the need arise?
I like that.
Woo!
You never know. If you're listening, you probably might need it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you don't, but possibly.
I know.
Okay, my lovelies. Well, Lindsay, this has been so awesome, and I'm so looking forward to part 2 with the tools and techniques to help people become the light that they seek, the light that they truly are, essentially. Really.
I'm so excited to continue tomorrow. So, well, next time, I should say.
It's not going to be tomorrow for you people, but it's tomorrow for us. So,
I know.
Stay tuned, babe. Okay.
Right. Looking forward to it.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
That's it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. If it resonated, please share, follow, and drop a review with your takeaways. It really means a lot. Visit my website at livelikeeden.com to subscribe for weekly reminders and blogs, or sign up for a free 30-minute consult to explore one-on-one guidance sessions if you're really struggling in Awakening's darkness. Take my Awakening quiz to get a personal podcast playlist that meets you exactly where you're at. See you next week for another deep dive.